Hello there and welcome to episode 3 of Colonization Project. Right now what we are doing is unlocking level 2 of the astronaut complex so our kerbals can go on EVA once they're in space, and moving on to the first quote-unquote launch of this episode. So in this episode we're doing crewed spaceflight, as the title may suggest, at least if the title is what I'm thinking it should be. So what we want to do is we want to test the launch escape system for our capsule in case, anything goes wrong. Because if something goes wrong, we don't want anything to happen to the crew, so we can just test the launch escape system right here with a uncrewed test flight of, it's like a in-flight launch abort test. And everything goes well. The capsule separates from the booster, and the capsule can safely parachute back down to the surface. Now this isn't crewed because you don't want to risk a kerbal. We don't really want to risk losing a kerbal in a flight that's not really gaining us that much. It is gaining us a bit of science though, because this is actually the first craft that we've ever recovered, and because all the other probes have either stayed in orbit or have crashed down into the surface. But what we can do now is launch our first orbital flight with a kerbal, carrying Bob Kerman into orbit. I was going to use Bob Kerman because he's a scientist and he can reset the mystery goo, but as it turns out we had enough mystery goo to last us the entire flight, so we didn't actually need a scientist on board. But oh well, I guess he gets the record of first kerbal in orbit. We are launching this on a Pleiades launch vehicle because we've used it before. We don't really have any other options, and it's quite a reliable vehicle. What else? We get into orbit without any issues and plenty of fuel left. Probably not enough to go to the moon, but we do have a lot of fuel. We could not do an EVA on this mission because I clipped a probe core into the crew capsule to allow for Bob Kerman to be able to control the rocket, but that prevented him from exiting the capsule, so we couldn't get any EVA reports. That's not too much of a problem, because we're still getting a lot of science from this mission. But it sort of limited it in a way. What you saw there was us recovering the booster for, I think, the last time, because I don't think we're going to be recovering Pleiades launch vehicles anymore because they're really cheap to build and they don't take much time to build. So what's the point of reusing them then? I mean, it does make the cost and time zero, but I think it's a bit. The cost to reuse them is a bit more than the cost of actually recovering them. But we have landed and can move on to the first flight that goes into orbit around the moon. As you can see, I tested the EVA hatch this time and it does work. So that's good. Once again, Bob Kerman, because we actually needed him this time, because we actually have Science Junior. Only one of them, though, because I didn't want to put 2 on there. Actually, we would need 3 of them, and that's a lot of mass. So we got Bob Kerman just to reset the just to reset the experiments, so we don't have to be carrying around like we don't have to be carrying around all that extra mass. But we're just getting into orbit and heading off to the Mun. Bob Kerman will not be the first. Actually, he won't be the first at everything. I'm going to make sure of that, because we can't let one kerbal be able to have like every single record. But yeah, just getting some more science from doing some EVAs, and heading off to the Mun, because that's the whole point of this mission. I don't think it would be as great of a mission if we didn't go to the Mun, because we've already been to orbit. I was actually planning on doing a suborbital flight of this capsule, sort of like the Mercury Redstone in real life, but it would be kind of strange to recover the booster without propulsive landing, and it wouldn't get us that much science. Or I mean, if we did that, then the orbital flight wouldn't get us very much science. So I just decided to skip straight ahead to the orbital flight, which was probably a better decision, a bit less realistic than the real life space program. I'm talking about NASA, not the Mercury Redstone program, and not the Vostok program, because Vostok just went straight for orbit. They didn't do suborbital. But if you're comparing it to NASA, it's a bit unrealistic that we didn't do a suborbital flight, but things are a bit different in stock Kerbal space program. Now we are doing the EVA on the Mun, and since we can get more EVA reports from different biomes above the Mun, we can actually stay on EVA for about an orbit, and get all of the science from those biomes, which is good. We need a lot of science to unlock the tech tree, so we can get more science. But eventually, I thought I found all the biomes, but there are like 2 more that I forgot. But we are still getting quite a large amount of science from all of those missions, so it didn't really matter. This is also testing if the heat shield can survive re-entry with the amount of ablator it has. And it's pretty easy to survive a lunar re-entry from the Mun with little to no ablator, but we should just have that extra amount just to be safe. But what we're doing now is we've landed in the ocean. We haven't collected a lot of science from here before, so we're just doing that real quick before I think we're going to unlock the tech tree notes. Yep, we're unlocking heavy rocketry, propulsion systems, and space exploration. And electrics. We're unlocking a lot of science. And miniaturization. We are unlocking a lot of science. What else are we unlocking? I forget. I think it's advanced construction, which gives us a bunch of new parts to play around with, and will be crucial in our next launch, which isn't happening right now because we need to upgrade our launch pad to level 3, so we have unlimited vessel mass and vessel dimensions. But now, we want to rendezvous 2 spacecraft in orbit because we want to go to the Mun. And, we could do it without this mission, but I had a contract to do it. And, it'd be nice to test all the systems that are needed for the Mun before we actually go to the Mun. So this is what this mission is all about. We are sending up this small little target vessel, I guess is what you would call it. So we're sending up a small target vessel, and then we're going to send up a crew capsule, which will unite with the crew capsule will unite with the target vessel, dock with it, and then sort of help it deorbit. But target vessel is in orbit, so we can move along to the crewed mission. I forgot what I was going to call this new family of rockets. I totally forget what I was calling it. I think I was calling it, the Horsehead, because the Horsehead Nebula is a little bit bigger than the Pleiades Nebula. I'm actually not sure. Do not quote me on that because I am probably wrong, because I don't do very much research into naming these rockets. We're actually launching at night because this is when I found it convenient to launch. And I actually came up with a name for the crew capsule, which is Orion, which is creatively named. Definitely not inspired by the NASA Orion. Even though this looks absolutely nothing like the actual Orion, it is essentially a Gemini. Is it? I don't know. It's one of those. It's one of those two. How you pronounce it? It's one of those. It's essentially that. Which is a bit unrealistic because we're actually going to be going to the Mun with it. In real life, the Gemini program didn't even go anywhere near the moon. Rather, in real life, the Gemini program stayed in low Earth orbit. It performed, I think it was the first docking. I'm not sure if it was the first, but it performed a docking with the Agena target vehicle. And, that's what we're doing here. We are taking an Orion and rendezvousing it with the target vessel. I don't have a name for this target vessel because I don't name my upper stages. At least not yet. I might name my upper stages in the future, but right now I do not name my upper stages because I'm not that creative with names. This mission is sort of a technologies demonstration because we're testing a new crew capsule. We're testing our docking ports. We're testing antennas, solar panels, RCS thrusters, the new heat shield, new engines. We're testing a lot of new engines. I actually ran out of monopropellant in this in the Orion capsule. So we actually have to unite the target vehicle with the crew capsule rather than the crew capsule with the target vehicle. Yeah, so this is sort of like it's demonstrating the new launch vehicle. Although I did upgrade the first stage engines in the next launch. But we have docked with the we have docked the two spacecraft together, and Jebediah Kerman can go on an EVA check to make sure everything's working, and try and head back to the Space Center. I don't think I've mentioned the crew of this mission. This mission is carrying Jebediah Kerman and Bill Kerman, both of which have never been to space. So I thought it would be nice to, give them a chance to head into orbit. You can see I detached the I've detached the transfer module and service module as quickly as late as possible, so we don't leave any space junk in orbit, because we're good space citizens and we don't want to be causing Kessler syndrome, because that would be pretty bad, getting a potential interstellar spacecraft being hit by a piece of space debris left behind 50 episodes ago. That wouldn't be too good. But our next launch is going to be the start of our MUN mission. You may notice that there is no crew on this. Rather, the MUN mission will be divided into 3 parts. We will be launching 3 different modules, all of which have a separate purpose. It's not going to be Apollo style at all. Actually, it's sort of like an Apollo style mission, and it's not going to be like the direct descent, like what I did in the last series. We're going to build the spacecraft in orbit in three different modules, and then we're going to send that entire spacecraft off to the MUN, and then we're going to send the spacecraft back from the MUN. Although we are going to be detaching a few modules here and there, but other than that, it's going to roughly remain. We're performing orbital construction essentially. This module right here is going to be the fuel module, because the Orion crew vehicle didn't have enough Delta V to get the lander and the crew capsule itself all the way out to the MUN, which isn't good. So we have a small little tank of reserve fuel right there. But that is not it. We cannot go to the MUN with that. That doesn't have enough engines. It doesn't have enough fuel. And the only engines that can make use of the fuel are the tiny little RCS thrusters. But this is the lander module, which will, as you may be able to guess, land on the MUN. You may notice that in these Horsehead rocket launches, that I'm actually igniting the second stage while the first stage is firing. There's really no point to doing this in stock KSP, but I thought it would be nice to add a bit of realism to it, and do a bit of hot staging, because that's one way to have your propellant be settled at the bottom of the tanks. Is hot staging, which is when you ignite the engine while the other engine is firing. You could also use RCS thrusters, although I didn't want to do that, and I think the Titan used the real life Titan. I forget which Titan rocket it was, but it was one of them. It used, I think it used hot staging. I'm not sure. Actually, yeah, I think it used hot staging. What we're doing now is launching. We are not launching anything right now, but we are rendezvousing the two spacecraft together, because otherwise we would not be able to go to the moon, which is like the whole point of this. Yeah, uniting two spacecraft in orbit around Kerbal. But as you can see, this is not the finished product. This will be the final module and also the final launch of this episode. Another thing you may notice is that you may have noticed that I detached the lander and I got into orbit with the lander. I didn't expect for that to happen. I expected to get into orbit with the lander. I didn't expect to use any of the fuel on the lander because I didn't test it. I tested everything. I tested every part of this mission except everything combined and the lander. I tested everything else and it worked fine, but I didn't test the lander and I couldn't test the full spacecraft, which it's gonna make for some interesting situations with the next episode, because we are not heading to the moon in this episode. Rather, we are heading to the moon in episode 4, not 14, episode 4. And yeah, you know, this episode was long enough. It's 24 minutes long, and you know, I might I thought it would be a good idea to leave the moon mission for the next episode and just show the construction in this episode. This way of assembling a spacecraft going to the moon is a lot more complicated, I think, than doing it Apollo style, where you launch it all in one go. And it's probably more expensive to do it this way, because you're launching multiple rockets instead of just one big rocket. But our rocket technology isn't that great. Like, we can't build a bigger rocket. Which, yeah, we can't build a bigger rocket, so this was like the only solution. Direct descent would require us to make a bigger rocket. Apollo style would have required us to make a bigger rocket. And this was the only way to go, because our rocket technology is not that great, and I wanted to get to the moon as fast as possible. So we just went this way, which I think is interesting. It's sort of like alternate history. Like if the Apollo program decided to do orbital construction instead of do it Apollo style. Yeah, anyways, we have docked a full spacecraft, and that will actually be the end of this episode. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.